Welcome to our PPS Daily Facebook Live update this morning. I'm delighted to have with us Kate Dodd from Woods Bagot, and I'll be introducing Kate in just a moment, but we're delighted to have Kate with us to interview this morning. She's going to have some fantastic insights for us on workplace design strategy, which is one of the topics that we've actually had our audience ask us about. You know, what are the new normals in terms of workplace setup and design? We know we should know what our obligations are in terms of COVID restrictions. But what is that going to mean for the way people work moving forward? So delighted to have Kate with us to talk about that this morning. So for those who already know me, welcome. And those who are joining us for the first time, my name's Bron Pearson and I'm from Pinnacle People Solutions. And this is, I think, our 17th week of daily Facebook Live updates, which is a bit scary. But our intention was to be able to get out there and provide business owners, their managers and their staff with routine updates on what's happening, advice, special topics, etc. during this really challenging COVID-19 time. So we've been here at 9:15 every morning and every weekday morning. And the good news is, if you can't join us live, all of the broadcasts are saved and they're up in Facebook, on our YouTube channel, in LinkedIn, and also on our website with some fact sheets. So you can go back and have a look at interviews that we've done. Good morning, Jessica, and good morning those who are joining us this morning. Delightful to see you. So please ask any questions that you might have for Kate or myself as we go along. Any that come in afterwards, we'll put to Kate and get some answers for you by early next week, if not tomorrow. So you can obviously ask any questions that you might have in the chat screen this morning, but also, of course, you can contact us anytime via direct message through Facebook or email or phone or our website, all the various forms and ways that you can get in touch and reach out, which we'd encourage you to use. So just very quickly before we spend all of our wonderful time this morning talking to Kate, just a couple of reminders and updates, etc. from Monday. And that is just a reminder that the New South Wales State Government $10,000 grants for COVID affected small business will be closing on the 30th of June. So that's next Tuesday. You don't have a huge amount of time, but there's every chance you'll be eligible. So get up there and have a look at that criteria, talk to your accountant and get your application in. We'll be talking tomorrow morning about hopefully providing more details on what's been announced as a $250 million targeted taxpayer-funded package for the entertainment, arts and screen sectors, which the Prime Minister has announced, and we understand we'll get more detail about that today. And the package will provide new grants and loans over 12 months to ensure that the industry can survive the coronavirus pandemic. So we will give you some more information about that. Obviously, you know, it's a significant area of the economy that we've been waiting to see what support mechanisms will be available. It supports the economy to the tune of $112 billion and employs 600,000 Australians. So it's a big deal. And we'll be interested to bring you the details of that tomorrow. But for this morning, delighted to be here with Kate and interviewing Kate. So Kate is a global leader in workplace strategy and design intelligence. And she leverages an embedded approach to real estate and design strategy that prioritizes client and end user requirements. She's currently based in Los Angeles, but we are very fortunate that she caught a plane out here to come to a wedding and hasn't gone back. So consequently, we've had the opportunity to nab her for this interview, which I'm delighted about. So currently based in Los Angeles, Kate works with transformational clients across the globe. So Australia, Singapore, Japan, London, Europe, North America. Kate is focused on using space to attract talent and elevate her client's business vision. For our purposes today, she's particularly interested in workplace strategy and design. and the research around those intelligences. And she's passionate about creating innovative and smart environments to improve the way we work. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your passions before we get into some detail.
I think the context of where I came from is probably important. I went to New South, UNSW, studied interior architecture because I couldn't choose between interior design and architecture, and I really appreciate that kind of hybrid, kind of multifaceted consideration of the hybrid degree. So that was 4 years, about 10 years ago. So it's been a journey since then. So I started out, in the industry actually with the GFC stimulus packages, the Building the Education Revolution, doing some schools around New South Wales, and then moving into retail design. And then for the last 5 or 6 years now, I've been doing workplace strategy globally. Fortunate enough to get a role at Woods Bagot with our current head of workplace design global team, and working on Google in Singapore, Japan, Sydney, Munich, London, everywhere.
Fantastic.
And so I think I designed the NRMA headquarters at Olympic Park, and quite a few bits and bobs here and there. So currently based in LA, working with some American clients to actually bring them up to speed with where Australia is at as far as workplace strategy. Really in Australia, the banks and the fintech industry have driven Australia to be well ahead of the curve globally as far as leveraging space to support business.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Look, as I said, we are very lucky to have nabbed Kate while she's still on Australian shores. Not that we couldn't have done this via Zoom, but it's so much nicer to be able to do it socially distanced in person. So, Kate, one of the questions that we've got a lot of our audience asking at the moment is the office dead?
I think, the answer is no. And I think what the office will be much more intentional. Everyone during the lockdown period has obviously struggled. I mean, I'm not an anthropologist, but the isolation and the lack of diversity of people that you can interact with. We are talking about a relatively narrow section of the population. We talk about work from home. There are quite a lot of jobs that, aside from the front line that you think of as far as kind of medical or grocery clerks or those kinds of roles, there's a lot more people in manufacturing, agriculture that can't work from home. And so that's something just to bear in mind, that the office worker population that can be remote has been really challenged to be intentional, to be motivated at a time of massive global uncertainty. But one of the things that we're missing, we found feedback from all of our clients, is creative problem solving. Needs to happen in person, is something that we need the social cues. I mean, Zoom and other video conferencing tools are great, but we get 70% of our information from in-person social cues and the physical environment. And so although we can work like this, the technology hasn't caught up yet to allow us to fully interact remotely. So I think the office will be much more about coming together, also how to differentiate employers. What is your role? Like, how are you attracting talent? What is the business doing if you don't have a culture and an opportunity to speak with one another, build rapport, build an identity, which, as our work-life Venn diagram becomes a circle, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what are your clients thinking about return to the office and the future at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, return to the office globally is quite diverse. So in Europe, in America, they're not, at the point that we are in Australia and New Zealand at the moment, as far as kind of having a handle on the situation and understanding kind of personal responsibilities, but also business responsibilities to keep employees safe. So that conversation is much more kind of nascent for them. But for our teams in Asia, we have 17 studios globally, and 3 in China and Hong Kong. And so, they're back to normal in a way. So having Beijing shut down again has been really interesting, but fundamentally, the same way that, you wash your hands when you come in the house, or that you're being considerate about things like the building lobby experience in a kind of tower commercial, is very much that belongs to the public realm now.
Yes.
And so then getting into your office, into your
Space.
employer's safe space is kind of, that's the point where you would, you know, wash your hands, and then inside that environment, you know, mask wearing and those sorts of behaviours. Which are a consideration.
Absolutely.
You know, being considerate of others.
So what are you seeing, or perhaps foreseeing even more so, the impact to be on the real estate industry?
Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
You know, it's my philosophy that the real estate industry moves too fast now. Right. You know, we on the scale of headquarters projects that my team usually works on, you know, we're planning at the moment designing 2 buildings that are going to open in 2022 and 23 on different sides of the planet. And, you know, to be able to think that far ahead in terms of a lease, in terms of headcount, in terms of what the business will be doing, is something that we specialize in, making sure that space is reflective of that business, but it's a little bit crystal ball reading. And it's, you know, much more around getting consensus and taking a real estate project as the opportunity to think about who you are and who you want to be.
Yeah.
And so I think the repositioning of assets as far as real estate goes is going to be really interesting. You know, our team have put together a really interesting proposal about kind of work from, if that's work from home plus, or if that's a mix of work from home, work from work, what some different models of that might look like. And I think we can probably share a link in the chat to that. And it's really one of the components, kind of workplace as a club, so that focus happens elsewhere. And that workplace is kind of like a club space where you're coming together, integrate. Obviously that doesn't need to be as big. We we spend about 40% of real estate in the tech industry in particular on social spaces, on desk spaces, and the other 60% is social and support. So if that 40% is the requirement is reduced for desk, can we increase the capacity, increase the distancing in those social spaces and push focus away? Another way that we're looking at it is kind of cycling. So whether you have the opportunity to reset potentially expectations around one-to-one kind of individual desking, in that if you're able to shift work, so kind of Monday, Tuesday, one team, Thursday, Friday, another team, that if you're able to pack your things away, that a team can properly clean on Wednesday and properly clean on the weekend. And so, you know, that's a huge change to a way that a lot of us work. I personally live out of a backpack, but that's because of the way that I travel around the world. You know, in my previous role, I had 5 years worth of paper on my desk, and I knew which project to pull out depending on where it was in the stratum of history. But I think, you know, that kind of behavior, now that we've all been completely thrown out of whack with this isolation, what intentional behaviors do we want to take back? And how can that help us be more effective with space and really make sure that the office is supporting the business? And a really important component of supporting the business is the people, attracting and retaining talent. And, you know, with the bigger changes in the world around technology and everything, talent and human skills are critical, and that competition is beginning to ramp up. And so, as I said before, about kind of a point of difference, developing culture, how to onboard new people, what those relationships are, is going to be a really great opportunity to say, what components do we pull from before, and what do we want to test, and even taking kind of staged re-entry as an opportunity to test different scenarios.
Absolutely. Well, that leads us beautifully to my next question, which is, what silver linings then do you see in the current situation? Because you've already touched on a few.
No, I think definitely that one, around being intentional. The pace of real estate, as I said, you know, if it is really expensive to fit out an office, and particularly, I mean, if we're working with like 3,000 employee spaces, it's a massive investment that will be most likely refreshed in 7 to 10 years, or that the lease terms might be up to a maximum of 15 years, which is at the same time a really long time to occupy something that you might not have had time to think through properly. And also a really short time as far as sustainability and kind of considering the implications of that on the world more broadly. So I think taking a little more time and being really intentional about, as a business, to embrace the opportunity, embrace expertise. I think, there's a potential consideration that interior design is something that anyone can do, and to a certain level, a lot of people have a general knowledge of some of the components, but there's a lot of nuance and detail and experience that if you have access to someone that can kind of think about that externally, from a non-biased position of where is the business going, how can space work. My sister likes to taunt me by saying I choose cushions and curtains, which, to be fair, I do, but that's one of the 300,000 components of a project. So
fantastic. So, as you know, we specialise in supporting regionally based small to medium-sized businesses and not-for-profits. So what would you do in terms of advising smaller businesses that may not have access to the big design firms, obviously, to think about their offices post-COVID?
I think, to take that in two parts. So post-COVID, I think really thinking about the operation side of the business, how, not just your current employees that are familiar with the systems, but potential as you're growing, potential new employees will be able to fit in. So if there is some kind of scheduled or staged return, really thinking around how you can test that and not really commit to something up front.
Yeah.
I think being open-minded and really running through those kind of opportunities is worthwhile. But as far as design goes, and whether this is a post-COVID rationalization of making sure that you're distanced, or kind of longer term thinking about how space can support the business, I think firstly, the big firms like, at Woods Bagot, we're doing a 20-person office in Dubbo at the moment for a not-for-profit that services children with special needs and autism. And so I think, we are available, firstly, but also I would just challenge, if you do have, and also, supporting local business, if there's an interior designer in your area that you want to work with, I think, really asking why and pushing function and making sure that, for me, because I like it is never a good enough answer.
Yeah.
It's kind of, how are we not just making something pretty, but pushing the business forward, supporting future flexibility, all of those questions that will drive them nuts. They drive me nuts when my clients ask me. But I think that opportunity to really embrace space as the physical manifestation of the business, and as something that's not about necessarily what the business is now, but what it can be in the 3, 5, 10 year timeline.
Well, I know when we chose our current location, which we haven't been in since the beginning of March, but we are looking forward to be able to return to in some creative shapes and forms moving forward, that because of the nature of our business being, really based on a strong level of trust and rapport with our clients, it was incredibly important to us that both our staff could walk in every morning and go, oh, geez, I like working here, and also that our clients could come in and go, all right. Yep. So maybe talk to us a little bit. I realise I'm diverting a little off script at the moment, but talk to us a little bit about the kinds of questions that you would ask your clients as they're thinking about what kind of space they want to create.
I think this might be controversial. I never ask what they want. The first question is,
because they don't know what they want necessarily.
Well, there's a frame of reference, right? Yeah. Of what you've seen on Grand Designs or what you've seen in other offices, and not to mock that, because but if course. Like to say, I say, who are you? Who is this business? If you need to, make that into anthropomorphize that, or
what's your why? Why do you exist?
Yeah, yeah. And who do you want to be? What's the vision? Sometimes business leaders can be like, why are you asking me this? And it's very much that, space can be flat,
Yeah.
or it can really be dynamic that engages and as I come about to like elevate the business. And so, you know, there are also things about like how to move teams around, how to deal with different personality types, but also not over generalize. And so it's usually kind of, you know, as an introvert, I actually like to sit on the corridor in the most activated space because I'll drift and go where I need to go. So having diversity of choice of where to sit. But yeah, so who are you? Who do you want to be? What are your actual functional needs? You know, I love to ask, you know, for a big organization, like what's your team? And they might say it's, you know, FP&A. I'm not an accountant. What do you do? Like giving me an acronym doesn't tell me what your day-to-day activity is. And so I think some of those things where it might be, you know, for in that scenario with a tech company, we had an engineering group, data engineering, and the FP&A group as the example is the kind of financial and something administration. They actually had very similar needs to the engineers, even though you wouldn't think of them as being on the same. They were saying we have a lot of focus space, we have a lot of paper, a lot of reports to read and regulations to understand, but functionally how we work is to come together around a whiteboard. And so, you know, what I'm hearing is you need space to focus and you need space to come together. And actually that's a very similar model to what the engineers are using. And so do we try and build two separate ones and see and swap, right? And see which one of those is more successful to then roll out. I think piloting and testing things is really positive, especially given that, you know, it is a huge investment to move. And so trying out some ways of working, I think, I mean, the phrase hot desking needs to...
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to be a bit controversial and say, what do you think about hot desking, Kate?
No, I think it's terrible. I think, I mean, the traditional meaning of it being that, you know, there's a set of assigned desks and there's a hot desk at the end of the row. You know, I'd much rather have a visitor chair at my desk that you can come and sit and talk to me. Or in kind of the other end of the spectrum is that no one has a desk. Teams have a zone and kind of it's part of the culture of the business. This is not something that you would just kind of do because it's cool, but to say, you know, between meetings, because we're very meeting heavy, we're always off site, you know, particularly like sales teams and such, to come back to the office. The point of being in the office is to do some emails, download with your colleagues, you know, get that chit chat, the impromptu conversation that we can't get now. And then really building on that. You know, is that an individual 6-foot desk, or is that even a standing table that we just huddle around and go, what do you think about this or that? Or so. And
how do we huddle now at 1.5 meters distance?
Yes.
So what do huddles look like? You know, I'm interested too in how or what the rethinking now is around common spaces, around, you know, kitchen places and social spaces. How is the design of those starting to continuing to evolve with COVID, and the fact that, I mean, post-COVID, chances are we're going to be socially distancing for quite some time yet, and potentially, you know, many more times into the future with incidences like this with our connected world. So
yeah, we're starting to, the more intentional you are, and even now, like thinking about going out to the shops is a thing that you think about, that we never used to. And, you know, do I want to stand in line outside the pizza place? You know, those sorts of calculations are now intentional. And so the way that we're thinking about it is not just, you know, how many people can I fit in a meeting room, but what function is that providing? You know, how do I avoid you know, the cost and inconvenience of demolishing something that was expensive and might not be an issue if, you know, mask wearing becomes normal, and the reduction in transmission in that, you know, increased sanitation and kind of hygiene and cleaning, you know, that our human kind of need to be together. You know, do we create intentional tribes? Right? Are you just reducing your you know, what do they call it? Your spreader factor. How many people you have contact with, but you know, certain people, you know, it might not be your immediate family, and then your you know, daughter's soccer club, and then your work group, and there's some Venn diagram crossover, but it's much more intentional. And so, you know, with my work colleagues, you know, I would be comfortable to sit around a table with people that I trust is the fundamental, but I wouldn't need to be in an all office meeting.
No.
Or in, you know, a crowded restaurant or something like that. So I think the office, given how much work is of our lives now, is much more likely to be a trusted component of life. And so I would question, you know, the engineering community has put forward some really great suggestions around fresh air exchange, and kind of, you know, it's from their mind the same as me thinking about kind of designing intentionally. They're going, can we upgrade everyone's air conditioning in the world, please? Because we really need to, like the kind of cost efficiency of driven ideas in the past is, okay, well, this is a new normal. How do we use this as a baseline to actually improve everyone's access to fresh air? And so those kinds of things will improve the spaces that we're in. And so I guess we're trying in our practice, our projects are down the line. So we're doing some intermediate distancing options with a, you know, question mark end date, but fundamentally in the future, if the point of coming to the office is to come together, what are the formats in which that happens?
Yeah.
Is it the open desk chit chat? Is it the scrum table? Is it a formal boardroom presentation? How often will that happen? And for our clients, particularly the tech community with their access to talent challenge, which really does tie into regional and remote communities. You know, if a company in San Francisco can hire people in Kansas, and that experience...
Why can't they hire them in Armidale?
Well, exactly. But that experience of those people that are remote is not less than the people in person. If we can take, you know, the people in the room have always had an advantage. And as a design industry, we've worked toward integrating remote participants, sometimes at the detriment of the people in the room, right? So reducing that experience. There's one company that only holds meetings via Zoom.
Okay.
They have no, like, it doesn't matter if you're all sitting, 6 of you are at a desk next to each other.
You're all on the screen.
Because 2 people are remote, everyone's on the screen having their same Brady Bunch experience.
Okay.
But I think that the difference between when things are remote, when things are in person, are going to be really interesting. But yeah, just that intentionality, I think, is the one word takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So can I ask you, again, a bit left of centre, what are your favourite things about your job?
Problem solving.
Okay.
I mean, there's so my particular role, so I'm the North America Workplace Strategy Lead, and I do a role that doesn't really exist anywhere else, that's an establishment lead role. So to come in, really interrogate what the business wants to do. And usually, you know, sometimes we're brought in early enough, sometimes we're brought in as an architect, and they say, here is a building, making interiors. But I always say, rewind. Who do you want to be?
Yeah.
What do you want to do here? And then really building a structure around that. And so, you know, my poor siblings have to put up with this all the time where I'm like, what about this word? And they're, you know, it's because we're committing to that, not just for the 3-year duration of a project, but for the 10 years that this will be occupied. You know, every employee should know what the story of the building is, what the point is, and what the design rationale is, so that they can give a tour, but also so that they can understand how it's meant to be used. So for example, Google in Tokyo, it was designed as a platform for the business to grow, was the catch-all. And that means it's not finished. We know that we're not integrating all of the technologies that are going to happen. This is just, you know, a bit of a software pun, but a platform for you to take and develop.
Wow.
And that it's all about being
a work in progress.
Connected, exactly. Being connected within the business with quite a few employees, very disparate teams, being connected with the community in their new location, about the future, about that opportunity within the market, but also, you know, what the brand wants to be. And then about identity. So Google within Japan within Google, all of those layers. And so literally every employee can articulate that and understand that the building's a platform. It's not meant to be finished. There is flexibility for you to use it in different ways, and some spaces that, you know, have are hackable is a word that we try not to use, but conveys the message.
Yeah.
So I think articulating that and building it, and then going into, okay, the real functional nitty gritty of, you know, how does the AV team build up systems and test them? How do the IT team distribute, you know, where's your mouse and keyboard pickup? How do I get help? Where's security? Is security back of house or front of house? You know, and that's an organizational question about who the business is, whether security is friendly or hidden. And so really capturing all of those, you know, I then create a series of sketches of diagrammatic how it will work, some little design layouts, and then I love working with these kind of beautiful finishes designers who think about the volume and design in, you know, those beautiful artist renders that you see around. So I'm very much on the how to make it work problem solving end, as well as the vision side of things.
Yeah, and look, I have to tell you, I'll talk to Kate about what links we can share with you of some of the projects that she's been involved and has led the design in, because they're absolutely something else. What we might also do, Kate, is I'm just thinking now that we might even see if we can nab you for a part 2. And potentially do a case study on a regionally based business and the bringing that to life. So I'm just putting Kate on the spot here, so it's difficult for her to say no.
Absolutely put my colleague on the spot who's designing that space. No, it's a really interesting project, and the global team has been involved because, you know, dealing with design for neuroatypical people, kind of what colours, patterns, what lessons learned, what the global. There's not a lot of research into. You know, how people with autism experience environments, and so making sure that it's comforting, welcoming, not adding extra stress to people who perceive things differently. You know, things like, if you could imagine, you know, a normal childcare space that might have a brightly coloured wall that vibrates, quite distressing.
Yeah.
so there's all of those factors, and then also, you know, a COVID response component, a really beautiful design from the team. I think I would love to share that with you.
Fantastic. Yes. Okay, so we have a plan. This is where putting somebody on the spot within 1.5 meters of you is beneficial. Fantastic. Look, thank you so much again, Kate, for this morning. We're so incredibly fortunate and appreciative of having you join us this morning. So if you've got any specific questions, things that pop into your head that you want to know more about, get in touch with us. You can. I don't think we've had any specifically on the chat screen yet this morning. I'm just having a look. Dennis is up there telling us that you've done a great topic this morning, which is absolutely it's been fantastic. So any particular questions or follow-ups, we are going to do a part 2 with Kate and see if we can focus on this not-for-profit project in Dubbo, you said?
Yeah, or I mean, we've also been working with the New South Wales government. There might be some sites we've been doing in, I think, Orange, definitely.
Fantastic.
Newcastle, some of those spaces. So obviously confidentiality
pending. Of course.
But,
yeah.
But no,
sure.
I think there's quite a bit of, we work with, they keep changing acronyms.
Of course.
DPIE now currently, and Property New South Wales, and you know, been doing a lot of their work for the new consolidated headquarters in Parramatta, which
Fantastic.
is huge, obviously, with different departments coming together and a shift out of the CBD is a lot of moving parts there. But as I say, the teams, universally, our approach is to understand the business, create space to elevate that, and then execute something that's beautiful.
Absolutely. I will be delighted to get into that in greater detail next time. So a huge thank you to Kate. As always, it's a delight. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise and what gets you up every morning. That's in terms of work, that's fantastic. Please join us again tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about what's next. What's next in so many different contexts, actually, including announcing some really exciting changes to our live stream schedule from next week. So please invite your colleagues, your family, your friends along. We'd love to see you. In the meantime, please hug the people that you can. Wave cheerily at those that you yet are not allowed to. Stay safe, stay socially distant, wash your hands, and we'll really look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.